Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Magic the Gathering Arena. Today is Wednesday, April 22nd. Now, at the last stream, almost certainly everybody just saw it cut off instantaneously. It seems like the last couple of updates, maybe just the newest major number change of OBS version 24, has some kind of bug where the way I use it, after 3 or 4 hours, it just seems to lock up. There's no error, there's nothing there, so yeah, that footage was mostly lost. I don't think that there was much of a loss there. I talked about just like video game news that isn't that important. It's not like a lot's happening. And I talked a lot about just games that came out on Steam, which again aren't very important. We have 3 hours to do this section, but first let's open some packs that I collected by playing off screen. I believe these Ravnica cards, yes, of course we're getting new cards, but remember the Ravnica expansion is leaving standard play. And I listened to a podcast talking about how Pioneer is kind of already damaged as a concept, and so like Pioneer and Modern might really be not a great place to play the cards that aren't in standard play, and that kind of particularly for Magic Arena, but for in general, it seems like it's getting harder and harder to find good places to play your old cards. Even Commander seems to have put out some bans very controversially. So yeah, the inherent problem with Magic continues to be a problem of these cards not really having much use and being very high priced, particularly in a digital format. Okay, so we have a new daily deal, and I think that's all we really need to check here, where we could get a Ikra pack for 850. I don't think that that's a terrible idea, really. It seems like they have just kind of embraced the idea that very often in these 4-hour chunks or 12-hour chunks or whatever they actually are, these daily deals do play fairly well. We should probably think about what the real equivalency is for 800 gold and 850. You do that 10 times, that's the effect of a draft without having the benefit of having a draft. So there's a thought process there. But yeah, every single one of those cards was helpful. We need to build another test deck, and so between red and blue are 2 options, so I guess we'll do red. I don't know if this really is jumping into the action as far as a YouTube video, but we'll see how this goes. I'm also testing out a audio. It's called a VST 2.0 plugin that OBS can use. They are plugins that I am not familiar with. It's much more of a thing that I would say audio people would know about. And I'm trying a de-esser. So I've noticed when hearing myself, which honestly hearing myself through my Blue Yeti. I'm not even sure I am hearing the final mix, or if I'm just hearing the microphone directly from some other mix that the microphone itself is doing. So I'm not even sure about that, but I have noticed that either probably to the fact that I have gained maybe a little bit of a lisp, and there's just some S-iness at the end. So like if I go she sells seashells by the seashore, that feels a little lispy. And what's funny is that really wasn't what I was in speech therapy when I was a kid for at all. So I've just developed a different thing. But it could also be, if I just don't want to blame myself here, which is it's kind of silly to do that, but whatever. It could be also a factor of just that the audio is amplified pretty high, and that sometimes causes a lispiness. So I'm trying out this de-esser is what it is. It's like DE-ESSER is I think how it's spelled. And it's supposed to cut down on that. The other plugin I want to try, and I'm gonna have to find one and see if it really works with OBS, which I think a lot of these VST plugins, which are designed to work with other audio software and not a streaming software. But the other plugin I want to try is generically called the Big Bottom, that would raise up the bass. This is the effect that so many radio stations / personalities who went on to being podcasters after radio stations pretty much died have, and it totally changes how they sound and lowers the bass and makes them have that radio voice. It is really a historical holdover from an era when increasing the bass was necessary to get more actual physical transmission distance out of your out of your AM radio stations, and possibly even some early FM radio stations. I think mostly AM, because the amplitude modulation would be much better suited with a big bottom effect to lower the bass. That is also in part a factor that affected whether certain audio radio stars became popular or not. I believe Elvis was given quite a lot of play on AM radio stations just because his records, and they were literally playing songs off records in the early days, were just so bass heavy that you could get more transmission power out of it, a little bit more, and every little bit you needed. There might be something to do with that card. This is kind of an interesting card. What we're trying to look here, though, is to see if a red deck is... Are we going to have a mutate... or are we going to have a aggro spell damage deck? Because both of those could be different, for sure. See. Or am I going to have a cycling deck? Which, maybe that would make sense. What does this do? If a cycling ability of another non-lane card would cause you to draw a card, instead exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a card that shares the card type with the cycle card. You may cast a card without paying its mana cost, and then put the exiled cards that weren't cast this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. Interesting. I don't know if that would work at all, but interesting nonetheless. I think we kind of have to go with cycling. And we'll just look and see if we want to experiment with a red-blue or some other combo deck. I imagine not specifically for a deck that is designed around this idea. Of course, if I was going to make a red-green, we could bring out Godzilla. Do we have the ability to companion? Let's see. No card in your starting deck has more than one of the same mana symbol in its mana cost. So you would have to get rid of several of these cards if you were going to do that. And then it taps and adds all 5 mana colors for... That's weird. This is like a 5-color deck card. I don't think that would really work. And Godzilla's not a companion, so there's no benefit there. Each permanent card in your decks has an activated ability. Abilities you activate aren't mana abilities that aren't mana abilities. Cost 2 less to activate. This effect can't reduce the mana cost to less than 1 mana. Target creatures can't block this turn. Interesting idea. Let's see if we can play that. And then this could be played as a mono red or a red white card. Fine. And here we have a triome that probably wouldn't help, and here we have a crystal, which seems like triomes and crystals are just, is it a land versus is it an artifact idea. And here we have a planeswalker where the text is too small. Okay, so apply styles. We have 74 cards. What I want to go back now and do is throw in everything with cycling and see how that affects things. Let's see. Any card that has cycling at all. And then we'll have to think about how many of these cards we want to really get rid of. The odds are pretty low. Yeah, I have no idea what this is, so we'll have to hold on to that. The odds are pretty low, though, that this companion card would not be satisfied. Your deck must fulfill the following thing. Each permanent card in your starting deck has an activated ability. So, the following cards don't have an activated ability. And if I got rid of all these cards, I think we'd be kind of fine. So that doesn't have an activated ability. Nice that they've kind of gotten rid of, they've highlighted what you need to get rid of. So we're getting rid of a lot of things from the core 20 set, a lot of things that really didn't work for me anyways, because it's not like my red deck was super successful. This was the like main card to this test deck before, so we've just are completely abandoning that strategy. And honestly, that's really just going to leave us with a few, one card less, one card over. Let's just figure out what we'd like to get rid of. Shock seems like it has an activated ability. Now that's the thing that doesn't make sense, is I guess activated ability means only creatures have something special about them. Spells and enchantments don't count. 1 damage to any target is not really in this strategy. 3 damage in Scry. Spectacle. Mutate. Equal to the number of lands you control. Yeah, let's get rid of this. That's not super useful. And let's go ahead and call this the red test deck. Now. Alright. This ends in 3 hours, so we still have time. So let's play this test deck and let's see what happens. Alright, nope. We want to try the red test. And we'll give it 1 game or 1 decent game, and then we'll move into the other experience, and then we'll jump back to testing out the red test deck. There is rank play, certainly, that could be played. So that is another factor and concern, certainly, that I should look at. Is it is kind of dumb to have us not play ranked play and try to get up higher in ranked play. I was kind of succeeding at that. So there's a level of reason to want to keep succeeding at that. Let's see. Okay. These look good. Put this on the field. Let this guy attack. Whenever I cast a non-creature spell, he untaps. This one, if we have 3 or more mountains first, we should be good. Here we have another cycling card. So, that card will get buffed. Let's see. I don't have enough mana to tap and use that ability. This does 2 damage. The Scorpion. Scorpion's not a bad card. Alright. So if I was to, let's see. Do we want to mutate? Or do we want to do this? I think we mutate on top of this character. And then we go over for the higher health. And then this creature does X damage to any target equal to the number of times it's mutated, which I guess is only once. And then this doesn't have death touch, so I can just attack, and if he defends with both of them, I guess he would die, which may have been his best move, but it also may prove that he doesn't have enough he just doesn't have enough abilities. Now that we have 3 of these, we get a 1/1 dwarf. 3 damage to any target. And scry 1, or do we put this on the field? So, Porcupine Parrot deals 1 damage to each opponent, which is way worse than having just attacked. But yeah, I think we're doing fine. If anything, I think we're doing a lot better here than we do normally. So here's a flying creature. Put that on the field. Deal that much to that one. See, whenever you cast another thing, untap. Well, oh man, I wish I could undo this. Is there a Control Z? Nope. Darn it. Well, then what we'll do is we'll tap this and target this one first, then untap that one, and then we really don't need to see the spark or shock spell. And let's see, tap this, I guess, and then here we go, cycle this. Ooh, cycling did not untap it. Then I could tap and I guess attack, have one of these guys not block. But I don't think that's really needed. So we can play a little bit more conservatively here and not just rush to attack the face. This guy clearly is suffering from not being great at let's see, whenever this guy mutates, it deals 4 damage to target creature. Alright, well then we're going to tell this creature he can't block. And this will be interesting to see if our companion just dies. I guess he does. So a companion is lesser than the commander with a higher restriction, but it does otherwise seem to kind of work very nicely. 2 damage divided amongst those. So X damage here. Do 1. 2 damage there to do 2. Resolve. These guys don't let us summon any more characters. Attack here. Even though I've been very aggro and doing a lot of damage, take note that I'm only at 10. And he's only at 10, so these cards aren't game-changing successes. If anything, each of these cards has been overplayed by this one strategy. Interesting. Interesting example of why you need testing and how a game can kind of just turn in the opposite directions. Alright, so for the first step workshop for this new expansion, we have new mutations as a deck, which is going to almost certainly be cards that mutate. There's some low cost cards down here, and then a 3 mana mutation here, and then several mutations here, and then this one apparently comes from the graveyard over and over again. And then another mutation, and some more mutation. But you are playing a 3 mana deck, which makes quite a challenge, and that's why Evolving Wildlands is in there. Apparently, Commander doesn't allow sideboarding, so the companion cards might very well not even be allowed in Commander, because Commander's like this, there's a weird kind of separate agency. What's this one called? Vicious Cycle, so it's just all about cycling. It doesn't seem like Wizards of the Coast has full control of Commander. That Commander's just these custom rules, like a custom game using those cards, and that has them do some different things for better or worse. Just can't drag these, so that kind of sucks. To come over here, click on one, click submit deck. Wouldn't it be easier just to be able to drag that down or drag that down? I'm still not even really sure what the Haversack of Favor does, though. It doesn't seem like it rewards you significantly. I've been playing and installing and uninstalling a lot of cell phone games and running into the idea of VIP levels, where you only get rewards at all unless you've bought something, and your VIP level goes up every time you buy more things. The Haversack of Favor seems like it might dangerously be close to experimenting with that idea. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this. And then we're gonna see what we can get on the field as quickly as possible. This mysterious egg needs to be on the I guess on the bottom of anything. What does this one do? Look at the 3 cards in your library. You may reveal a creature or land from among them and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. That's not useful. Really? Not at the moment. At least. So, I've been playing Deathbank. According to the game itself, I'm 75% done. There's a point in the game where I'm going to spoil this just immediately. But you have two things that are surrounded by wooden things. You have to drop those things from the menu in an area where termite enemies are, and the termites eat the wood. You really don't do anything like that at any other point in the game, and this happens in the middle of the game. There's a couple of missions where you drop a scanner around a monolith that's something like that, but not really. It really does not compare. Let's see. What do we want to get rid of? I'll choose the land, I suppose, just so I have a land to play. So one of the main quests required you to do the termite thing. One of the side quests required you to do the termite thing. Because of that, I spent probably an hour in what is already a short action RPG game, kind of running around and grinding, and I don't know if the grinding really is going to help. I'm seeing an increasing number of enemies that just hit really hard, particularly since I'm not using the blocking feature. There's a lot of features in the game that are just like totally underused and implemented. It just has like no good reason to exist. I probably should have looked at the other card before I mutated the other one under, but I guess you can't. And it's a little weird that these cards are being depicted as directly under, because I'm fairly certain in Magic you wouldn't be allowed to put a card directly under. You'd have to put it slightly tilted so people could see it. You wouldn't want some form of cheating going on that way. But yeah, Deathbank is still going. It's still fine as an action RPG. I don't know if it's really convincing me though that I would want to go and play a bigger, like, Neptunia action RPG. On one hand, Deathbank basically has no story. It's just the Tick and a comedic comic take on it that really doesn't matter. You're spending the vast majority of the game just saving orphans for one reason or another from enemies. In the most comedic way you can imagine Victorian orphans being depicted. Right, well, destroy a target creature and put a menace counter on it. Or mutate this and give it trample. I'm gonna give it over. Which makes it an 8/8. Which means I'm now probably in a good position to attack, but I'm gonna give it one more turn. Because if we put this on here, then you'll have menace and you'd have to defend with two characters. Two characters with trample would potentially be a one-game win. Of course, he's got 4 cards and enough mana to cast a decent amount of spells. And this card could come back from the graveyard, but I would need something for it to mutate onto, which is a problem. So yeah, I don't know if Deathbank really is convincing me that I'd want to play an action RPG. It'd almost have to certainly be 6 months from now, and maybe I'd want a little bit more story. I'm not even sure Neptunia really is the right comparison there. I think Ni no Kuni or something else, Trails of the Cold Steel or something, might be a much better explanation. Well, this one won't be too much of a problem. Can destroy that, and that puts a menace counter on him, and then we can just attack here. Now it can just be attack after attack. Of course, this guy could cycle up and do enough damage to defeat me, or just enough damage to make it so I can't just block with this guy. There is a danger of this character just having to turn into a blocker. Yeah. Yeah. Do I want to attack right now? I think the answer is no. Because I need to get this to have a couple more attack, or this to have a couple less life. That way I can do something. I probably should attack, come to think of it, because he's just tapping my characters anyways. So does he have... He has 9 damage right now. He's gonna cycle. That should give this guy 10 damage. I just lost. And I don't think there was a real way to win there. Like, this guy, whether it's a bot or a real person, knows what he's doing more than I knew what I was doing. And being able to tap a creature, even a creature that has Mutate, Death Touch, Trample, and Menace, still not that good. After I'm done playing Deathbank, I need to get back to uploading some videos. I spent the past couple days thinking about the idea of what's called multi-seat. Linux can do it. Windows has a software that you can pay for that will do it. You can also try to have like a Linux server run virtual machines. But it all is not a very polished system, and it would be much closer to an experiment than anything else. But the idea of multi-seat is that you build one computer that relatively is powerful, but not as powerful or expensive as what you would probably do if you were going to build 2 or 3 gaming computers. And this one computer then allows you to put in 2 or 3, however many people you need to accommodate, worth of video cards. It seems like video cards in particular are going to be your stumbling block there. And each video card then you dedicate to a specific person, and then you split like a potential 32 core Ryzen CPU into 2 16 cores or 3 10 core processors cores, and then you split up the RAM virtually too. You just in software take a slice out of each of those possibilities and give it to different people. And at the end of the day, if you can set it all up and get it to work, multi-seat then gives you one computer that takes up less power and less physical space. They can have 3 monitors, 3 keyboards, and 3 mice connected to it, potentially 3 USB hubs connected to it also, Although that might get a little confused, because if there's an internal like USB ports and you have to separate those USB ports, it's unlikely that many motherboards, I wouldn't immediately assume that all motherboards have more than 2 chipsets running the USB ports. So yeah, I'm not sure how you'd actually pull that off. Even if you did connect 3 hubs to 3 USB ports, those 3 USB ports might be on the same chipset. You might not be able to break it up. Does that usually matter much? No, but also this is almost certainly a use space you'd use for kids, probably young kids that aren't even gonna begin to be thinking about gaming. But yeah, the idea of one computer that could serve 2 or 3 kids, your 2.5 average kids, with one 800 watt power supply and relatively big computer. The thing about multi-seat too is that it potentially opens up this possibility where you could have it multi-boot, so it just goes to a standard Windows 10 single computer, and just like the first monitor and the first mouse and keyboard work, and everything else. Well, in Windows, if you plug in more keyboards and mouse, they just all control the same cursor and the same keyboards. So you can have multiple of them installed. In fact, I do have a hardwired plugged-in keyboard on top of my wireless keyboard into my computer, just in case there's a rare occasion when my wireless keyboard dies. I can still hit like Control-Alt-Delete and maybe recover a locked up system. So you can have a standard let's see. You could potentially have a Linux simplistic thing, something that just needs to have like OpenOffice, LibreOffice, whatever it's called nowadays, and Chromium or Chrome, just something like that. I don't even know if you did multi-seat if that would allow you to easily get Zoom or Skype working, which would be another thing. But with all of these kids being stuck in their houses, does this have a cycling ability? No. Well, then there's no reason to do that. It says death touch, unfortunately, so I need to start cycling things, and I don't think I really can. So yeah, in theory it works, but in practice, installing something like that is way more of an experiment than I think it actually would work. I think you're putting everything in one basket. You definitely don't really need to have one, say, $1,000 to $1,500 computer instead of having, let's see, can we activate this and draw a card? Thank goodness. Maybe cycle through their card deals 1 damage to each opponent. Yep, I keep putting all these cycle cards on the field, but none of their cycling abilities are actually going to be activated. This could be a game changer at the end, and it even shows you a counter in the top left here as far as the number of cards that are in the graveyard that would be satisfied by that. Alright, well this has a death touch anyways. So, cycling to do this and this. So now this has 3 damage to any target. Yeah. You honestly would be way better off just getting used computers, per se. Unless you just are at such a premium of space, and you probably aren't. 3 desktop Dells, old refurbished things that you can put separate power supplies in, separate video cards, separate hard drives. Hard drives and power supplies are probably the things that would break most likely, so just getting rid of that stuff alone is probably where the best ability is going to be. A much better... Oh, I did not mean to cycle. I totally did not mean to cycle. Let's just keep on cycling. Like, what in the world am I even looking for? Like, clearly the strategy was to cycle way more and then play this, which would have done 9 damage, and I think we could have kind of quickly done even more than 9 damage. Let's see. Cycle and mana, and then lose. Yep. The other problem I would say with multi-seat compared to just using used laptops and or Dell cheap Dell game PCs, so $500 PCs. I mean, you can do a pretty decent $500 PC and then potentially throw into that a really overpowered video card, and that alone would potentially get you into PC gaming fairly decently. Like you could certainly start down that path instead of multi-seat. I'm gonna play the cycling again since I think I have a slightly better understanding of how it plays. But the other big problem is not even the mainstream versions of Linux really supports it. Debian supports it, again with a lot of experimentation, but things like Kubuntu, which is Ubuntu designed to look like Windows, doesn't really support it from the looks of it, and Linux Mint doesn't really support it, so you're not really getting very far that way. There is a Linux out there designed to look not like Windows but like Mac OS, and maybe that would be cool if that supported it, but that version of Linux also isn't one of the top 3 recommended ones that I would list. Speaking of computers and talking basically nothing about video games, there's something interesting. A survey I saw came out for Japan as Japan is in basically a state of emergency. I think they actually declared a state of emergency. Like Shinzo Abe is not very popular right now. In all honesty, I think his popularity was definitely set up by the fact that up until this point, nothing was really happening in Japan too terrible, nothing that they could actually blame on him, because his policies have always been a really conservative policies, which probably is in line with a lot of the mentality of the people who would vote in Japan. But yeah, I don't think the next generation is super popular with what he's done, and he's kind of failed to solve the growing economic problems that are going to hit China over the next decade, and the growing issues of a low working population. Alright, let's cycle some more. And then attack. But the survey came out, and 50% in this survey of Japanese youths have never used a computer and don't know how to use a computer and don't know how to use Windows. Now that is deceptive, and they're liking it to Japan being like a third world country, but I think it is also very important to remember the reason why so many of those kids haven't used a computer is because they've been doing everything they needed to do on their cell phones. And it's almost, I would guess, close to 100% of all kids have cell phones. And the cell phone service in Japan is, from what I can tell, excellent, because why wouldn't it be? It's a small island that where most of the population is within 100 miles of Tokyo. So yeah, it almost brings about the question, will the next generation of people even really need to know how Windows works? Probably, though. Probably the answer is yes. Particularly if you're going to be like doing a job like animation or working in basically any kind of office. The reason offices exist these days is because computers exist. So yeah, I definitely put a card in your library. Why would I want to? And draw. Okay, yeah, I'll put a card in my library and draw. Why not? So yeah, as Japan potentially moves to trying to do remote learning, most of those kids are not going to know how to use a computer or have access to computers. It also, if 50% of kids haven't used a computer, that means PC gaming is non-existent in Japan, and that's been the case, yes. So that makes sense. What is the damage this would do? Trample haste. Can we play this? No. So let's do that later. Let's attack now. And see if he decides to defend. And this is now an instant. To do that. And then Do I want to draw a card? Yeah. I put away a card and got the exact same card. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, there really is no way you're gonna be an animator or an accountant or anything like that without knowing how some operating system, probably Windows, works. And almost all jobs are very likely to have very old software that just has to work. This is in part the reason why nobody could ever switch fully to just using Linux, is that there's just too much historical legacy software that still exists, that's still getting used. So yeah. I could see this being a situation in other countries, certainly, particularly countries like the UK, where again, probably cell phone reception is just fine in the UK, and kids could probably do everything they need to do on a cell phone or want to do. So, yeah, I wouldn't really be surprised if more computer classes need to be taught just for basic understanding of computers. I remember when I was in school, for sure, there was definitely kids that had never touched a computer, had no idea what it was. I cannot play this, can I? This card is just way too expensive at 7. Like, well, no, I only really need one more mana. So we'll just see if we can actually play it and get an 8/8. And definitely the people that didn't ever touch a computer or know how a computer worked suffered. The problem, I would say, is by the time the kids I was in high school with that were touching a computer for the first time touched a computer, it was too little too late, and they were just kind of being forced to take a computer class as just, you have to take at least one computer class mentality. Where I was extremely lucky to be in different school systems when I was very young, and those different school systems had a very early exposure to computers, both in kindergarten and first grade. There was a pretty heavy focus on exposing kids to using computers. Let's see. If I put this would do just 6 damage, which is not enough. Alright, I think we've got to do this. Finally got the card, but oh, if I'd cycled this 4 times, it would have gone into the field. Oh, that sucks. That just totally sucks. Is this an instant? Ooh. If I could get this to do double damage, that would be cool. But I can't, so I need another copy of this. But then if I did another copy of this, and then let this guy die, then yeah, I could do 12 damage. So yeah, after first grade, I was into the general school system that was the same as my high school, and while there were computer classes, it seems like it was fairly easy to not do much with them or not do anything with them. It still was very weird, I suppose, that there was even one student that said they'd never touched a computer before in their life, and they probably were exaggerating somewhat. And a lot of the kindergarten computer classes and all of that are literally just going to be exposing the kids to the ideas of computers more than actually teaching them how like Windows or anything works. And I don't believe the computers that I was even using in first grade and kindergarten were Windows computers. I think they were potentially Apple IIs or earlier products. So very different there. Which, speaking of cell phones, as I'm kind of just rambling here and just talking, let's try the mutation deck. We need to start actually winning with one of these, because now we're on to our 4th game to get one stinking victory, and that is just cutting into our time completely as far as actually doing anything. We're approaching an hour, and I've managed to build a deck and then play 4 games that all ended up with me potentially losing. I guess this might work, but this is pretty crazy. Pretty crazy starting hand. Fortnite is now on the Google Play Store for whatever you want to take from that. Why is this over here? I thought these would be sorted more. And Fortnite, I think, has put out some kind of statement. Enters the battlefield with a choice of a death touch or lifelink counter. This adds mana of any color. Spend that to cast a creature spell. That's going to be better. So you can kind of put this on the field and let things mutate either with a death link or life link. And see, since this is going to be lifelink, I think you probably would want to play this as deathlink. So yeah, you can take it one way or the other, I suppose. Either Fortnite has gotten enough of its player base, and Epic has gotten enough of its player base on Android phones outside of the Google Play Store that they're now just trying to get the remaining few players, or you can take it that Fortnite was not taking off enough on Android as being a side loadable app. I think, can I mutate this? I think if I was to guess, I would say seriously? What happens now? Now that that's a -1. Does that affect this? That's an interesting way that resolved. It killed it, and then that just means that puts it on the field, where I would have thought maybe that would have canceled it getting summoned altogether, or potentially this would have combined or replaced the health and attack of this anyways, so it wouldn't have mattered. Because does it really matter if this was a 0 -1 if it was just under as a mutation? Although if it did play out that way, that would kind of suck. It would be really, really hard to counter mutate abilities at that point. I haven't heard a lot from Fortnite lately, so I really wouldn't be surprised if each opponent loses X life or gains X life. So we want to mutate, I think, this onto this. as an over. And then just attack here. This doesn't have death touch. Well, that stinks. Alright, let's start going through the games and the news, though. Otherwise, this is just going to become a really long stream. And I don't know if I particularly want it to be that long. This is going to create 1/1 tokens every time, so I'm just going to block it just to get rid of it. And I'm going to choose Death Touch. That selection menu always feels weird. And then I'm going to just choose Death Touch again. And can we mutate now? And put it on top of one of these guys as an over. So now we have a 4/4. Can we attack? That same turn? That was going to be my next question. But I guess we're not going to get that answer. So we have a game here on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian letters. It's tagged as an RPG. I suspect this is a Chinese RPG, but I don't dislike what I'm seeing here. Unlike most Chinese games, you're seeing very detailed backgrounds, you're seeing a nicely drawn character that's a focus. But then you get over to this and there's just a lot of text and a lot of menu systems, which again makes it feel like a Chinese game. If I was to suspect anything, I'd say this was probably a cell phone game being ported to PC, and there's not much of a gameplay mechanic. It seems like you might be kind of just dating the characters and then sending them off on some kind of missions, but I'm not even really seeing a gameplay mechanic. Like, not at all. I haven't been watching the video, but English is not supported for this. This is $8.99. I need to come over here. Discounted. And we got that on the field. And do we want to attack? I think we do. It is Japanese full audio and Chinese supports. So apparently it is a Japanese game. I was wrong about that. Video has a anime older woman, it looks like, with a knight helmet on and cleavage showing, which is a little weird combination. Yeah, the video doesn't show any trailer, any gameplay element either, so they say it's a RPG and the Arc System Works apparently was a developer, but boy does it not feel like there's a game there. And yeah, since English is not supported, of course this just doesn't make it to the follow list. We probably won't even see a lot of... So that gave me like 25 XP and 25 gold. And this gold, which I think means it's a rare card. A rare card for a expansion that I think is about to go in the wild. see. Legend of Sarcophos, that was the 4th copy of that, and it's like a Theros Beyond Death card, so it's not that old. But okay, not a terrible reward, but it kind of sucked. And we can't do a premium draft for sure, and we need to cast 6 more red spells, so we'll do 1 more game with the red test deck, and then we will go back to playing just our standard black deck, I think, and that should get the other daily quests done and get us towards getting daily victories done. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article here. The design of a Peggle-like dungeon crawler called Round Guard. This is apparently a new game of some sort that looks kind of like Peggle, but I'm not sure you'd really call it just a Peggle-like as much as you would just call it a Pachinko roguelike, which I think is a better combination. And since Peggle is a particularly old game, there's a lot here that is changing things up and making it more interesting. So if this actually comes out and gets well reviewed, I could see that easily making it to my wish list. Apparently it's my turn, but I can't do anything. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article. The Facebook gaming app has been officially announced. I seriously doubt Facebook gaming is going to get anywhere. If anything, mobile gaming, Twitch gamers, and YouTube gamers, all of these things should be really successful and really popular right now, and they're not really seeing a big uptick in popularity. Perhaps with everybody just having to deal with a new reality, people just have less free time than you would think at first look. That's probably the case. So the kids, the parents, like people that would be watching YouTube from their office or their schools now are actually having to do real work. So this card literally should just be cycled every time, because it goes back into your deck anyways, and it draws a card. So it's actually a really, really good card if you know how to play it, which wasn't my problem, clearly. There is also a problem of a lot of celebrities either making terrible content from their homes and not seeming to really care or know what to do as far as just basic things like soundproofing, cameras, microphones, software to use. They've apparently they don't know anything, or this is inherently, I guess the problem is all the celebrities you've ever seen on TV have just a bunch of nerds in the background that they don't appreciate and never really treated that well, or cared about, or even gave a second thought to. And instead of the nerds inheriting the earth, the world is just now going to suffer from a large amount of terrible quality content. Yeah. The internet certainly is probably really slow for everybody these days too, so I wouldn't be surprised if uploading a lot of videos would be a bit of a concern. Like if I was if I was actively trying to upload a bunch of footage right now, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't upload very fast. And I suppose I don't want to give any ideas to YouTube, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they just started completely stopping small content creators from uploading content or something else. But that would probably require them to do more work, and they don't want to do work, so that they probably wouldn't bother to do that. Let's see. Moving on, we have a Gamatsu article. Robotics semicolon notes elite and dash double pack launches October 13th in November in North America. Jeez, if I could read that sentence right. I haven't heard of this game, Robotics Notes Elite Dash, though. I don't know if these are visual novels or if these are just a couple of something. Like, here we have a trailer for a game called Robotics Notes. It's part of the Steins Gate universe? Interesting. That's not a name I would have just immediately assumed. Of course, the Steins Gate universe being a story about different universes kind of makes it weird in the same way. And then here we have another trailer. I feel like these are all side characters of the Steins Gate universe too, doing side actions. And it's weird to have a double pack of two different games, particularly coming out in the West. And it's definitely weird to have to play one more red or white spell. You know what? I'm just gonna come over here to this and let's just see if maybe there's some way in this deck there's like one white card. No, there absolutely isn't. So we'll have to try it one more time. So the console versions are going to be bundled together. The PC versions are going to be available individually. Almost certainly neither one of those games are great. Robotic Notes Elite or Robotic Notes Dash. And they're hoping that combined they can sell it for a higher price because of that. So ideally what we would want to have happen here is I would like to be able to play one red card to satisfy the daily quest and then just decide to end the game by the opponent conceding and get a quick victory. Like that would be how I'd like it to play out. Odds of that actually happening are probably pretty low. Next we have a game on Steam called No One Lives Under the Lighthouse, which seems like it's probably a low effort, ugly looking horror game. Like, I don't see a reason why you would want such terrible jaggy polygons. I don't know why you'd have so many screenshots that are just really, really dark. It's $4.49 discounted. English, Russian, Chinese, and Ukrainian. That is definitely a large collection of concerning languages to support. Almost certainly implying that it is a low effort Russian game. So yeah, that's not making it to the fall list. 2 damage to any target. And then we'll just play that because I think we need to. Tech Raptor has an article here. The Doom Eternal soundtrack quality disappoints fans. This was probably the first time in the entire 5+ years I've run a YouTube channel that anybody has had anything to say as far as the soundtrack quality of a video game is concerned. Like, there's been certainly people that say the songs in games are not great or they are really great. Often people are more willing to say it's really great and just kind of not mention it if the sound and the music is mediocre. But the idea that there is a game soundtrack that very easily could be few if not none of the actual sounds in the game. Let's see. I don't know if I can do anything here. I didn't really need to do that. Let's just act crazy. Just act crazy and see what happens. So it's pretty shocking when people are disappointed. And it seems to me like I saw a story that says the guy who made the songs from that are actually in the game wasn't really a contributor to the songs in the soundtrack. This Mick Gordon, I think, is the character. Seems like he's not happy with Bethesda either. It's really not a great time for Bethesda to irritate people. They'd kind of pulled themselves out of any dangerous situation by simply just releasing Doom Eternal and it being a decent game. Because remember, Bethesda still has a lot of those mobile games that they're overcommitted to. Fallout 76 that they're overcommitted to. And just a lack of ability to make and release a new Skyrim or a new Fallout that's amazingly good, or the Starlink game that they're supposedly developing. This guy has got me wrecked. I think it's just his gameplay. He's just got a strategy here that's way better than me. See, I think I probably should just concede and save time on this. Well, it is typical that I'd like to see things through. I think in this case it's probably easier and just more efficient just to concede. We're not going to be able to beat his strategy of stealing my lands every single turn and making it impossible to play even my companion. The weekly victories don't reset for another 91 hours, so that's kind of a shame. because that did prematurely reset when the new expansion came out. But I suppose for a moment there it could have been a case where we actually just get potentially 15 victories every day of experience to move our mastery levels up higher and quicker, which would pay off somewhat nicely. But at a certain point, once you get past level 100 or so, getting a lot of XP just to get some random uncommon cards is not as useful or necessary. Let's go ahead and mulligan. Now we're just back to our black deck, and now let's start powering through the news, because I don't feel like I'm going to be able to put up with sitting in this chair for another 2 hours. Here we have a game on Steam called Swords of Gura, which seems to me like it's probably an asset flip sword fighting game. A lot of neon colors and kind of just like a tech demo of people fighting each other. Early access, $17.99 discounted, VR online PvP with probably a very little emphasis on single player. There's going to be some weirdness, certainly, with playing a VR game where the characters have to walk backwards and forwards and attack each other. You're almost certainly controlling all of that movement with a controller and not your actual movements, and I think that would be confusing for a lot of players. But yeah, Swords of Gora also just doesn't look good, so that's not making it to the fall list. Put this on the field. Put this on the field. Put this on the field, because we kind of have to. This guy can't attack, but he can block already. And why can he block already? Can't attack unless defending player has 7 or more cards. Can't block unless you have 4 cards or more in your hand. So he has more than 4 cards, so that's why he can block. Okay, good to know. Gamatsu has this article that has more to do with anime, but it's a Pokemon anime. Pokemon Twilight Wings Limited Anime Series Episode 4 Early Evening Ways includes the character, I believe her name is Nessa, in the game, in the latest Pokemon games. She was highly popular, to say the least, and there's nothing else nice that the internet really had to say about her, and her being slightly tanner. It's always worth mentioning that this, almost certainly to a Japanese person's eye, is more of a tan than being a African American character, but a lot of Westerners were labeling her as the first like African person of African descent character in Pokemon, and I don't think that was the original creator's intent at all, but maybe they embraced that. It is worth mentioning for the new Pokemon game that the Scottish girl, who is the main female character, really hasn't gotten as much hype after the initial launch window of the game. The male character got no hype even before the game launched, and the Team Rocket girl, or punk looking girl, at least by the the outfit she wears has gotten more hype than the Scottish Girl did. So none of those characters are amazingly popular, and I wouldn't say that the latest Pokemon game was amazingly popular either. The mainstream Pokemon anime series will almost certainly just be Ash and whoever he's hanging around with these days, without there being a major interaction of any of the new characters. The problem the problem with Pokemon as a story and Ash Ketchum's companions is, since they're saying a very basic story in the first place, and the gotta catch 'em all idea, Ash Ketchum really can't evolve much as a character, which means none of his companion characters can be much more interesting than Ash Ketchum, who can't evolve as a character, so he won't be interesting either. So they're in this forever deadlock of having to have a basic main hero with a bunch of basic companion characters, and maybe they can push it a little bit in the movies, but probably not even that much. I'm gonna go ahead and just decline this. So yeah, that becomes a problem. If they were to bring in the new characters from the latest Pokemon game, Sword and Shield, and have them be companions to Ash Ketchum, they would have to effectively be just carbon copies or pale imitations of Misty and Gary, who had the benefit of establishing those roles and have the history behind them, so that they can have more characterization now and more of a feeling than anybody else. I suppose retrospectively, if you look at the fandom of Pokemon when the original cartoons were out and Red and Blue and Pokemon games were out, Misty and Gary probably way more popular than Ash Ketchum. And honestly, it's just Misty is way more popular than Gary is too. There are people to this day that still cosplay Misty in her Togepi character that she eventually got, whereas nobody's really doing Ash Ketchum as a cosplay, and nobody's really doing Gary as a cosplay. Very small number of people, at least. So maybe what the Pokemon cartoon series could have done is spun it on its head, have Ash either succeed, or I imagine you couldn't kill off the character, so have him just kind of succeed in the first championships and then decide to retire, and then spin it off to be Misty as the new main character of the series, and then every few seasons it could be a new character takes over and becomes the new lead. That very well might have worked better for merchandising too, but I don't think the Pokemon Company was willing to have Misty be the main lead of the Pokemon shoujo targeted towards boys anime series, without them potentially deciding to completely change the Pokemon series and making it a very girly, like otome style series. And I imagine if they thought that would work at all, they would have done a spin-off series. And that goes very much in line with the idea of them potentially having a Pokemon Pink game, which was an article I saw that they were thinking about doing that, and they kind of canceled it at the last second. We are actually trying to win here. We're playing ranked, so I don't want to do anything stupid. But I'm not. Now this one can't attack or block, so guess what we want to do is start attacking. What does this guy do? Turn target non-land for 3. Cast up to 3 spells among your face-up cards. Just go ahead and attack that. Moving on, Komatsu has an article. Hard Space Shipbreaker launches for PC via early access on June 16th. Blackbird Interactive estimates about a year of development time. What is Hardship Shipbreaker though? Because I haven't heard of it. Feels like it might be a slightly more narrative style game compared to some of the Space Crew games that we've seen that gained popularity for a brief second there of taking apart a ship. I guess is what you're doing. You're breaking it apart and salvaging it, which I don't see really any reason why you would salvage a ship in the middle of space. Seems like it would probably be very easy to just tow it back to a specific area and then in orbit on some kind of construction yard, deconstruction yard, take it apart, or you potentially just blow it up, or you potentially just throw it into the sun or the closest star if you just are trying to get rid of it. It's not hard to convince a ship to start going in a different direction or decay its orbit. Even if it was in like the dead emptiness of space, maybe then it kind of makes sense, but I don't know. That's kind of a contrived idea too. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called The Shattering, which from the looks of it looks like it might be an asset flip, like psychological first person thriller. Yeah, story driven psychological thriller is clearly happening in the mind of people. They're having a mental breakdown from a company developer called Super Sexy Software, which that's not a name you would probably want to give your company. $17.99 discounted, English full audio. I'm willing to put this on the follow list. It's already rated positive by a few people, but it is potentially a problem that half of the reviewers of the mainstream video game media might laugh at the name of your company, or just refuse to mention your company, or just refuse to even review any of your games because you've gone with a sort of joke name. All I need to win is to not take too much damage and get one more mana producing land. That's all I'm really looking for here. Gamatsu has an article. Telling Lies for the PS4 and Xbox One and Switch is coming out April 28th. I don't think that Telling Lies as the sequel to Her Story which was not well received as her story. I don't think it is benefited at all by being on consoles. If anything, I think it is way worse on consoles, unless there's some new features that they're going to put into the console version, which then they could put into the current versions to make it work better. Telling Lies is somewhat of a unique game in the sense that I think it was originally released on like this pay video service that I cannot even remember the name of, which was different. I wouldn't say it was interesting. I don't think for a second it convinced anybody to actually be on that service and pay for it. Okay. I could sacrifice this and get one more food if that helps me any, but I don't know if it would. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Train Station Renovation First Job. I don't know if somebody's job actually is to be like a maintenance man at a train station. There's probably a few jobs out there like this, but this is weirdly a game where you're doing somebody's job, which is always boring, and then you're doing a job that is very oddly unique while not really being specialized by the looks of the actions you're actually taking, just painting over things. It's free to play, bunch of languages. It seems to me it's from the same developers as Card Trader Simulator, so it seems like this developer's really just making some ridiculous, almost joke games, probably asset flip games, if I was to guess. What's going on? Game Sutra has an article. Nintendo is working with suppliers to boost Switch production in 2020. Great. I assume anybody who's building anything is working with suppliers to boost production, though, and that is in no way a guarantee that the stock of these products is going to go up. I don't know what this spell was actually going to do. Let's see. It was going to return it to the owner's hand, which I don't know if that would have changed anything really. Let's just go ahead and pass all these. Next we have a game on Steam called Dissection, which looks like a dark screenshot syndrome asset flip horror game by the looks of it. I don't really see an impressive enemy. And I guess there is a danger that there might be a really, really good horror game out there that doesn't have any enemy at all. This is the thing everybody says about horror movies, is just don't show the monster. It always looks worse if you show the monster. But in evaluating video games, if I don't see a monster, if they actually don't violate that rule and show us a monster, I pretty much skip it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do for Dissection. I don't even know if I looked at the price. I'm just going to skip it. Probably should skip half of these things and not even bother to mention the price. But then that wouldn't be very good news reporting, would it? Next we have a game with a bunch of Asian letters. It looks like it's some kind of walking RPG. They're labeling it as a roguelike. Looks pretty low effort and really doesn't seem like it has any business being in black and white. English is not supported. It's $1.99, Chinese only. Yeah. Not surprising, a low effort Chinese game. And then they just tossed the card I needed. Wow, I've lost. Alright, well. Let's see how this works. If this somehow saves the day, I'll be amazed.
Your fears are given.
He's just going to create more and more nightmares. Gamatsu has an article, Cat Quest and Cat Quest 2 Possum Pack for the PS4 and Switch launches July 31st. I think this is probably good. A good bundling of two relatively short action RPG games. It does kind of potentially spell a possible new era in which PC games come out cheaper, and then if they're successful, you get a very quick sequel, and then if those two games sell well, then you get a combination and they get released for other consoles. Particularly take note that this is the PS4 and Switch that are getting the bundles, which probably means Cat Quest 1 and 2 were digitally better sellers on the Xbox One, or they're not on the Xbox One at all. It's just totally wrecking me. Just getting totally wrecked. I don't feel like I'm doing particularly good today, so it does kind of feel like what's gonna happen is we're gonna finish today's stream, then I'm gonna spend a lot of time playing just casual and not getting up on ranked at all to just get the daily victories. I'm also still in this weird situation where I'm staying up later and later to the point where I'm kind of approaching the point of waking up at a reasonable time, like 5 in the morning, and then staying awake all day and then going to bed at like 10 or 11 at night. But almost certainly that isn't actually going to stick that way and work, and it's causing a lot of scenarios where I'm spending the vast majority of the day feeling half awake to the point where I really don't want to play even something like Deathspank, which is a very easy game to pre-record footage for, because there's not really a lot to say after the first couple hours of running around and attacking the same 20 or so enemies that are all divided into very distinct areas. It definitely feels like they created Deathspank on a bad engine or just on a bad mentality, so there's very little variety of enemies that are ever on the same screen at the same time. Maybe two, maybe a smaller version of a larger version creature. You might see a lot of the same characters, but no variety in the textures or anything. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Disobedient Sheep, which looks like it is a dog herding game, which doesn't seem to have any single player content, and while the concept might have been slightly interesting for 5 minutes or so, it's going to get old really quick, just barking and herding sheep, and then the sheep getting killed for random reasons that That's crazy. $7.64 discounted. Bunch of languages supported. This doesn't need to be on the follow list. Is there anything we can do? Anything at all? Like, I have 35 cards to his 33 cards. And he's just gonna start taking me out. Let's just concede. Let's just get out of this and stop wasting our time. We're at gold tier 3. And unless we get lucky in this next game, I think I'm gonna give up on playing standard rank. I kind of feel like if you made a single player game where you're playing as a dog herding shepherd dog, sheep herding shepherd dog, and it was like a single player adventure from a third person perspective, and you start from point A to point B, all the sheep get out, and you go through this entire countryside solving different puzzles, figuring out how to move how to get your sheep to move where you need to go. That might be interesting. On the other hand, that might really turn into something like a slide puzzle, which is what not Assassin's Creed Go, Hitman Go is. Like, I got Hitman Go and I was gonna play it to get the achievements on my cell phones, which is a really stupid reason to play any game, but after doing like the first level, first group of missions, I just like reminded myself I didn't like it the first time I played it. It's really stupid to play a game a second time just to beat it. And Hitman Go is really different from what the experience of the Lara Croft Go was. The Lara Croft Go games are actual puzzle solving, where the Hitman Go are more slide puzzle mathematical solutions, because almost every single character you deal with in Hitman Go moves on a set mathematical path, which means you have to figure out a trick to move yourself from taking an even number of steps to an odd number of steps, and that's pretty much the whole solution there, is that you have to go from either an even number of steps to an odd number of steps, or vice versa, to solve the puzzle. If you can't do that, then you will lose regardless of what other things you try. And so it's a lot of high level thinking, or a lot of frustration if you're not doing high level thinking. And I really don't want to do high level thinking on a cell phone game, so I just uninstalled Hitman Go. But I still do have like 5 or 6 games that are installed right now that I haven't even started. Like, I'm pretty much installing anything I've seen any ads for. There's a Looney Tunes gotcha game, for lack of a better term, that I'll probably burn out on pretty quickly, like Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny. There's a zombie survival game that I've seen on YouTube ads for probably the last year. I installed that and then found it to be basically nothing close to what it actually looks like in the commercials, which on YouTube, which is a consistent issue, certainly, where those ads don't make it look anything like it. Arknights is the current one that's just like horrible about that. Like, Arknights looks nothing and plays nothing like what half of the ads make it look like. Yeah. Jim Sterling kind of talked about false advertising a little bit. I don't know if I really want to comment on his content anymore at all, but the idea of is the Final Fantasy remake, which, spoiler alert, is basically redoing and changing the events of Final Fantasy VII and making a completely different game by the time you get to the end of it, of the first section. Some people allegedly are feeling like that was false advertising and are unhappy that they aren't getting a just visual upgrade to Final Fantasy VII without having the story be subverted. And I suppose if you took a scalpel to the content that has been made for the Final Fantasy VII remake, they could put in a gameplay mode that just did give you the experience of playing Final Fantasy VII all over again. But I don't think they have any interest in that. And it also seems like there is a fair concern that Final Fantasy VII has now turned into a Kingdom Hearts style game that is just going to be full of a lot of Kingdom Hearts style BS. So yeah, the story is kind of already off the rails, even for Final Fantasy VII, and so if it just continuously goes off the rails, then people might not like the remake, even if they were into the idea of the remake changing the story in the first place. So they are definitely risking a decent amount by doing it this way, and they really can't undo this decision. There we go. That's one victory. The question is, can we maintain enough victories to get up in the pips, or are we just going to lose right after that? So we just leveled up in the mastery too, so what did we get for that? Just gold. That's unsatisfactory to just get 500 gold. 500 gold. And here, a draft token will get one of those at level 15, so probably by next week we'll have a free draft. The question I guess to ask is, when does this end? Yeah, they don't really tell you when these drafts end. So if the Ikora drafts end and they're back to Theros Beyond Death drafts, that would really suck, and I'm not sure I want to do a Theros Beyond Death draft. I'd be willing to not do a premium draft for Ikora, particularly if they didn't include basic lands in a non-premium draft, but I don't need any more Theros Beyond Death cards. And that might be one of the things that kills Ikora as an expansion, is that it really has to be considered in conjunction with Throne of Eldraine and Theros Beyond Death, particularly Theros Beyond Death being not very satisfactory as an expansion. Like, you may love Ikora cards, but yeah, are you going to play a 100% Ikora card deck for the next year or so? Next we have a game on Steam called Snake Core, which looks to me like it's a top-down shooter. But no, it's not just that. It's a snake game. It's one of the version 2.0 Snake games where you have characters that shoot at other characters and then they do damage from behind. I liked the first game that came out that was like this. So I'll put it on the following list for that reason. It's $4.99, English only. They haven't really flooded the market with these games either. Now, there is the large possibility that even if you do add some elements to things like Snake to make it close to a modern game and a lot more interesting, it still may not be that interesting of a game. So I wouldn't also be surprised if Snake Core never actually convinces me to buy it. Borderlands 3 put out this article, Borderlands 3's Mayhem Mode 2.0 explained. I'm not playing Borderlands 3 right now, so I can't really care too much, but it seems like they're trying to change things up and keep Borderlands 3 relevant. But they're not really spending a lot of fanfare on it either. I imagine the advertising budgets, which they said they went, I believe that was part of the things they said they went over budget with was the advertisement of the game. So I kind of imagine that the advertisement budgets might be empty. It'd be an interesting debate to bet if Gearbox or Randy Pitchford specifically are still around by the time a Borderlands 4 actually gets released. But I kind of wouldn't want to just by default bet against Randy Pitchford. He's managed to stick around so far when doing all of the shady stuff. He may just be Teflon. Nothing sticks to him. Gamatsu has an article here, Metamorphosis official trailer, a first-person puzzle platformer due out this summer. So, we've got a little bit of a trailer. A game like this could be kind of dismissed as a first-person horror game. And it seems like there's a giant bug creature, or you're a shrunken creature. By the looks of it. Well, maybe there's a game there, maybe not. Feels kind of like a Bug's Life game. Years after A Bug's Life came out. Let's see. Game Sutra has an article, and the analyst says U.S. game spend jumps during COVID-19 pandemic as more encouraged to stay home. Spending on games digitally, in particularly, I imagine. Do I want to do anything here? Might as well recover one of those guys. TechCraft has an article. More rumors for the next Call of Duty game have been revealed. I don't think I'm ever going to care about the Call of Duty games, though, so check out that article if that interests you. Tech here, I guess. TechRaptor has an article. Bloober team has officially confirmed Layers of Fear film adaptation is coming out. Honestly, I think if you're going to cut it down to 90 minutes, somewhere between 90 and 120 minutes, you can probably tell a decent story with Layers of Fear, particularly if you integrate the added elements of the DLC. But as an actual game, Layers of Fear is still particularly uninteresting as a game. It's just a walking simulator with some horror jump scares and some puzzles. Gamasutra has that article we talked about earlier. Fortnite finally hits Google Play, but Epic still isn't a fan of Google's mobile tactics. Let's see what the actual quote here is. Let's see. Quote, after 18 months of operating Fortnite on Android outside the Google Play Store, we've come to the basic realization. Google puts software downloadable outside the Google Play at a disadvantage through tactical and business measures such as scary, repetitive security pop-ups for downloaded and updated software, restrictive manufacturer and carrier agreements, and dealing with Google public relations, characterizing third-party softwares as malware, and new efforts such as the Google Play Protect to outright block software obtained outside of the Play Store. That's a highly loaded perspective to put there. Now, I would say, as a person who probably would describe themselves as very often a contrarian, I can kind of appreciate what Epic's trying to do. On the other hand, it's kind of old hat and played out and boring to have Epic with their Epic Store try and set themselves up as the underdog who are fighting the monopolies in the Google Play Store, and also fighting the monopolies in the form of Steam. It does not ring true as an argument when you remember that Epic has the Unreal Engine and they have a monopoly as much as those two companies also have monopolies in the form of the Unreal Engine and first-person shooters, which are by far the most popular style of games that come out. And I think Google was definitely right to just say, no, we're not going to negotiate a lower cut with Epic just because they want a lower cut. And it probably killed chances, or at least severely hurt chances, of Fortnite becoming a even more popular product or staying around as a popular product. And yeah, cell phone gaming still really isn't in any kind of position where it's a good experience for the most part. And so it would be surprising to me if, now that it will be on the Play Store, more kids decide to actually start playing Fortnite on their cell phones. I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually not that way at all. This isn't video game related, but either in Japan or all around the world, the Neon Genesis Evangelion reboot remake movies, like some of the more recent ones, are available for streaming as a way of them promoting people to stay inside. So I might check them out. Now, I'm not sure at all if that's going to be Japanese audio and Japanese language subtitles only. I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly the scenario. So Western English only speakers may not really be able to benefit much from it. And you're not going to benefit much from it anyways, because it's going to be streaming on YouTube, and animated things, CGI things in general, look particularly bad on streaming services compared to live action things where there's less of a compression issue. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Baldur's Gate 3 is still targeting 2020 release amid a remote work slowdown. Okay. I don't know if that's really news for somebody to come out and say we're still planning on doing the things we said we were planning on doing. Can't do anything here, but we can do this. And so we should do that. Man, this is so slow to resolve. TechRaptor has an article. You can earn up to 100,000 K for finding Valorant anti-cheat security issues. If, I guess, you're a bug bounty security researcher, which is probably not a lot of people. I don't know if that's a general public news story. Let's just talk about news going forward, and we'll skip over the games. Since I think I'm approaching the point where I want to wrap up. TechRaptor has an article. Atomic Crops 1.0 release for PC and console is set for late May. I think we've seen this game before. Like, it's kind of like a Plants vs. Zombies game with also some Stardew Valley elements too. Yeah. There might be something here of interest. But it might also be a awkward combination of just a couple of very different gameplay ideas. I don't think I've ever been to the Washington Post before, so having used my ad blocker to turn off all their garbage. Ad blocking. Anti-ad blocker ad blockers. Ads. Do we want to attack? I guess we do no attacks. Then we end the turn. Anyways, somebody retweeted this Washington Post article. For physically disabled gamers, the Switch is incredibly accessible. Here's why. I don't really agree with that, frankly. The fact that you can remap the buttons right now seems like it's slightly helpful, but compared to what the Microsoft Accessibility controller has offered and raised the bar quite a bit because of that, the Switch is sorely lacking in features and abilities. Somebody who can't move at all, a paraplegic, is not going to be able to play the Switch. Somebody that has only one hand is probably not going to be able to play Switch. Somebody that has severe weakness in their fingers or missing fingers is not likely to play the Switch. There's considerably less connectivity for the Switch compared to other the other platforms like the Microsoft platforms, where you can kind of just plug in nearly any USB item controller you've got. The screen is not very big for the Switch, so the mobile version, not very helpful there. Connecting it to a TV fixes that, sure, but that really doesn't count as a positive. That's just a neutral ability. So we're gonna block this, and do we want to block this? Not yet. Play that. Then sacrifice this again. Play this. If I could get Bola Citadel, I might be able to win. But that's, I suppose, a big if. I've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think I can eat 1 health and be fine. TechRaptor has an article here. Bionicle Quest for Mata Nui revives a classic franchise as a free fan game. Bionicle, as far as the Lego series there, has pretty much been abandoned. They're not making any more Bionicle sets, and they moved on to the Ninjago sets, and I think that they will probably even move away from the Ninjago sets to something else in the next couple years. Particularly if they're going to go heavy into the Nintendo sets, that may be their next step. Although Lego does enjoy having things like Bionicle that they just own the rights 100% to. TechRaptor has an article here. American Truck Simulator Update 1.37 adds air horns and other goodies. I'm surprised that Truck Simulator wouldn't have had air horns in the initial release. There's a piece of hardware that I've found. Let's see if I can remember the name of it. It's like the Core Rock Pro or the Rock Core Pro or something like that. It's an interesting little device that is in the price range of a cheap mixer board, so it's like $500-$600 to start with. It's not for most people, but it does have an interesting podcast / streamer abilities to it, where you get 4 faders that are XLR connections, preamped XLRs, 4 headphones out, so you could have 4 people around the room with 4 microphones where you adjust the audio, and you can mute and solo each one of those. Then you get 3 more faders, one of which is the PC USB in, so you could have a Skype call come in. The next is a tip ring sleeve connector, TRRS connector, which is a phone connector basically, so you could have somebody call in from like a phone network or a landline and talk on the podcast. And then there's a third Bluetooth slider to connect to a cell phone, and so then you don't have to have an adapter to your cell phone, and instead you just directly connect it digitally. So in theory, you could have 3 different people at the same time calling in from 3 different connections. On top of that, you have 6 sound pads on the right that you can put sound effects on, or an intro, an outro, an ad break, things like that, and it has its own separate sound fader too. There's a ton of EQ, and the firmware is getting updated fairly often, particularly for something like a soundboard, to add more EQ features. It's not perfect. It's not a top of the line device or anything like that, but it is definitely seemingly worth it. On top of which, it records potentially multi-track with the latest firmware to a micro SD card, or to a computer, or to both at the same time. So you don't even have to have it plugged into a computer. You can just pick it up and take it with you to a meeting space. So it looks really good. Now, as most streamers probably wouldn't have a great use for it. You would have to pull a lot of shenanigans to figure out why you would need 4 microphones if you're just one content creator, or if you could figure out a way to make those faders control like in-game audio. That would be really, really hard to do also. And the main thing that I'd really like to see it have, and I contacted the people who created it, and they got back to me and said, yeah, we'll give your suggestion to the product team, is the sound pads for me aren't super useful. But if there was a device like that had some faders, if one of them could control control the desktop sounds a little bit more, which it can do that. Yeah, it totally can, because that was one of the Skype call function is just the desktop sounds. Yeah, you kind of don't need it. It's actually a little bit overkill. Honestly, I probably would need something that just had 2 faders and a bunch of buttons that would switch scenes on OBS. And switching scenes on OBS is just any shortcut key. So if the sound pads just sent out a signal of some sort, if it hit the spacebar, if it hit Control Alt T when you hit a sound pad, whatever it does, it doesn't even matter for OBS. And if it's programmable, more the better, because that means other software could be used. That would be really great, because then you would have still an expensive product, relatively speaking. Not really that expensive when you consider other sound audio equipment, but you would have a very nice product that could control audio without me potentially having to pause a game and go out to the main menu. Generally for video game pre-recording stuff, the audio doesn't need to be adjusted after the initial adjustment. Let's see. It can enchant land. Let's try that. But yeah, the idea of being able to switch different OBS video scenes would be really nice. Like when I switch from over here to over here, that's all done by the position of my mouse cursor. It would be nicer if there was a way to make sure that doesn't happen. A nicer way to switch between those without having to move my mouse cursor, or to be able to switch other scenes. Like, sure, it would be really nice if I could zoom in over here and just make that full screen. That would be very, very nice for Magic. That way people could read this way better if we just zoomed in this top half of the screen. But that would require me to set up some kind of shortcut key, and it would be the same as pressing a keyboard key, so I could do that right now without even buying a piece of equipment. But the piece of equipment would be nice. It'd also be very nice for a dumbed down scenario where you want to give people access to just this box that just has 6 buttons and doesn't have all the confusion of typing in things on the keyboard, or potentially having people drop the keyboard or hitting some other combination, hitting the Windows button or something like that. And this device, which I think is called the Rock Core Pro, also has a nice big recording button, so you just hit that button and it starts recording audio. Um, that makes it pretty simplified. So yeah, I guess if I ever became a big time YouTuber and I was doing podcasts with other people, it would be an interesting addition. Let's play this. Yeah. Okay.
I will change the world.
So we can exile 3 cards.
Ready or not.
And then creatures cards exiled this way may gain. You may cast this card from exile as long as you control the planeswalker. Let's do that one.
I have enhanced my tactics.
And apparently I didn't exile any creatures. So, do I want to attack? I think we attack. This is really dumb. That was a really dumb thing for him to do. Let's see, we were just gonna cover the news. Gamma Sutra has an article here. The App Store and Apple Arcade have been rolled out to 20 more countries, which I find surprising because I wouldn't have realized that there weren't 20 countries around that didn't have the App Store at least. So several countries in Africa, a couple in Asia Pacific, several in Europe, a couple in Middle East, and 3 in Oceania. Which Oceania, I have no idea what is Oceania. Ignorant United Statesian education system there. Target creature you control. Exile target creature.
If I can't use it as a weapon, it's useless.
Let's see, mutate. And we might as well just mutate on the weaker things. And let's just cycle. What does this one do? So this would do 1 damage every time it's tapped to that guy. TechRaptor has an article here. A mysterious new Jurassic World Aftermath game has been trademarked. Which, yeah, I guess maybe a Jurassic World Aftermath movie was in the works, and if I was to guess, and maybe this is the game that they're gonna develop around that, or maybe it's a case of Jurassic World Aftermath is not coming out, and let's see. I could discard a card and draw a card. What's this? Target creature can't block this turn. Why did I do that? Alright. Could I have actually won if I had attacked here, in there, in there? I don't know. Still might be able to win. Gamma Sutra has a job listing. Visual Concepts is hiring a combat designer in Agora Hills, California. Yeah, the number of job listings have been down, but there are still several small listings we're getting. Gamma Sutra has an article. 1 month after COVID-19 closures, GameStop readies to reopen its stores. Yeah, a lot of people in the United States itching to reopen, and it's almost certainly a mistake. Okay. Can we do this here? And then this here. Isn't this the one that untaps? I guess not. Man, I'm playing terribly then. I am just playing absolute terribly. I thought this one was the one that untaps when you cast a spell. No. It doesn't. This card has apparently no special ability other than discard a card and draw a card. What does this do? Trample and haste until the end of the turn. Well, I guess I could have been using that. TechRaptor has Nutaku's Heavy Metal Babes opens pre-registration. So another adult game. I don't think any of their adult games are good though. They're pretty terrible. I saw a thing on Reddit talking about how sometimes you get these ads for like clearly terrible, low effort adult games that no person in their right mind would ever click on or go to a site like that. But yeah, they were talking about how those sites are complete scams, and they just are trying to steal your credit cards from the sounds of it. Which I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think Nutaku is in the same position there, because Nutaku is owned by the same parent company as Pornhub, and while Pornhub is trying to get your money, I think they're trying to actually run a real business too. I don't know how to really react to this, but Reuters has a exclusive, apparently, Value Act, a company I've never heard of, eyes Nintendo with a stake of $1.1 billion. So, an activist investor, Value Act Capital Partners IP, has built a stake of $1.1 billion in Nintendo, according to a letter sent. So, it's been buying stock quite a bit. Is it buying Nintendo of America, or is it buying Nintendo of Japan? Value Act has picked up about 2% in Nintendo. Shares of the Japanese company rose more than 2% as of trading starting in Tokyo. It's quote here: "We are aware the Value Act is holding a stake, and we've engaged in dialogue with them. We don't disclose content of our dialogue with our investors," Nintendo spokesman has said. San Francisco-based Value Act said it's had several meetings with members of Nintendo management and believes in the vision the company's chief executive, Shuntaro Furukawa, has shared with Value Act and others. Well, it's gonna take a lot more money for somebody to buy Nintendo, and I don't think that's really gonna happen. Let's see. 5. I think 5 is probably all I can afford. I could have done 6. Says haste and trample. So I think I can just attack and I win. Yeah. I would find it deeply, deeply concerning if Nintendo, the kind of last Japanese game company out there, that is truly being run by the Japanese, because let's face it, Sony is a Japanese company that has allowed a lot of the Western divisions to run everything, and particularly the PlayStation division is completely being run by the West. Microsoft has always been a Western company. If Nintendo's all of a sudden had these activists, California investors controlling the place, that would be bad. I kind of don't feel like Japan would even let them do that. Like, it's always been weird to allow foreign investors to own certain companies in other countries. The idea of companies being public in the first place is insane, and really just leads to major problems of economics when you get down into the nitty-gritty of it. But yeah, I really don't want to see Nintendo become a Sony, and I don't want it to stop doing the crazy things it does, and I don't want to see Nintendo be a Microsoft either. Like, and if I was gonna invest in Nintendo, I don't think I particularly would. Like, I don't think Nintendo's profits are always as guaranteed as it seems at first glance, because there are definitely some duds, and even though the Switch is doing good now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Switch version 2.0 or whatever the next console is that comes out falls into old bad habits and turns out to not be anywhere as good as people were. Like, the Wii was amazingly successful, the Wii U was a huge flop, and having a business swing wildly between major failures and huge flops every generation is not a good way to have a business. Not something to invest in. Let's go ahead and not take that card and see if we can get another land. Reddit has a thing. Microsoft Xbox Series X logo has been trademarked from Microsoft. Let's see if we can get the image to actually show. The Series X looks fine. It's not amazingly great, and it's not heavily going into the Xbox sex branding that it almost and certainly will have by most people. Mutate. Yeah, there's nothing amazing about it though, and nothing hugely interesting. But the logo kind of doesn't need to be hugely interesting either. Like, it's just a logo. It's still 2 or 3 times better than the PlayStation 5, which is just the PlayStation 4 logo with a number 5 attached. Moving on, Game Search has an article. Xbox Game Studios, Codemasters, and others have pulled their games from GeForce Now. So more trouble for GeForce Now. They, I mean, clearly NVIDIA just completely failed to notify people what they were intending on doing with that software, because it's just a ridiculous turn of events that has given them nothing but bad press. Digimon Survive has been postponed due to COVID-19. That is, I believe, a Nintendo Switch PS4 game, not the most recent remake of Digimon the cartoon. Yeah, I was really surprised to hear that they remade like the first season of the Digimon cartoon, and they're just kind of rebooting it for a new generation, which is a very interesting and probably genius idea to eliminate the garbage that undoubtedly existed, the bad episodes, the repetitive stuff. Right. I don't actually have a reason to mutate this guy, do I? No, I don't. And it's the same cost to mutate than it is to do anything else. Some of the cycling stuff, if we're going to play this, we need to just heavily go into cycling. Otherwise, it's not going to make sense. Game Search has an article. Nintendo account holders are told to bolster security due to a spike of unauthorized activity. I don't know how you specifically bolster security, though. I don't know if Nintendo account holders even have two-factor authentication as an option. So they may be telling you to do something that's actually impossible. So you always want to cycle that. And then go ahead and do this. And
war is hell, and
do this.
to take you there. Monsters are the key to defending my city.
So if I played this and it put this in exile, then I guess I could probably then use its maybe I could use its ability, but maybe not. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I think you probably can't use this ability, so this card probably directly contradicts the strategy of this card, and that's a problem. Anti-synergy. Gematsu has an article. A puzzle action game, Monochrome World, has been announced for Switch and PC. It's due out May 7th. Do we have a bit of a trailer? It looks like it's kind of a ball rolling platforming game. It doesn't look particularly interesting or good, though.
Discharge indeed.
It seems kind of just terrible. This doesn't have vigilance, though. So he's beating me with this. Man, I just so many bits of news. I'm so surprised there's so much news. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. The Legend of Heroes Hajimari no Kisekai launches August 27th in Japan. Latest entry in the Falcom's story heavy RPG series. Legend of Heroes series, I guess. It also is part of the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel, which that might be the JRPG series to play. Just how Spite will cast that spell. We're learning things and sort of getting victories, but not anywhere enough. Gamatsu has the Famitsu review scores for issue 1638. Let's see. You can see very few games reviewed here. Dark Souls Plus, which I don't even know what that is, got a 29 out of 40, so it's obviously not well received as a PS4, Vita, and Switch, I guess, remaster. The Switch game For the King got 29 out of 40, which is pretty bad. And then Trails of Mana for the PS4 and Switch got a 32 out of 40, which is pretty good, but not amazingly great. And Trials of Mana is the name of the game, not Trails. What's most important to take from that is they really only reviewed 3 games, when usually it's closer to 5 or 6 games that you would see on a weekly or a monthly issue. I think it's weekly issues. Yeah, it would have to be weekly. Target creature gains double strike. Cycle this for 2. Cycle it like that. And putting this on the field would help. Put this on the field. And then I think either we put this down or this down. I think we do this. Then we just start cycling. Gamatsu has an article, Grisaya Phantom Trigger Volume 1 and 2 coming to the Switch this summer. A 2-volume visual novel collection is getting a Switch port. Apparently it's already on Steam. So I guess I could click on the Steam link and we can see what the reviews are. It's very positive as a visual novel. Looks like it's pretty violent. Detective story type investigation. $14.99, but then if you want all of the volumes up to 1 through 6, the bundle is $100. These visual novel games don't joke around, but yeah, we can see it's already on my wish list. It would be a hard game to justify purchasing in as a series and playing, but yeah, maybe it'll be cheaper when they release Volume 1 and 2 on the Switch, and they'll make a trilogy of bundles that are more realistically priced. Maybe, but not guaranteed by any means. Okay. Whenever you cycle this, put a first strike counter on a target creature you control. Alright. So that puts a first strike counter on this guy. then I can't cycle anything else. I could attack, but I don't have enough damage. Gamatsu has an article, Doraemon Story of Seasons coming to the PS4 on July 30th in Japan. So, I doubt the Doraemon young kid anime games would make it to the West. But it is already on Steam. I think it didn't get reviewed particularly well. No, it did. It's on the following list. It's kind of a Harvest Moon game, but maybe a simplified Harvest Moon game, so there might be more of a reason to play this. It's $49 though, so you're paying full price on that one. Let's see. First strike. A creature with first strike deals combat damage before creatures with fourth strike. So if I was to do this, did I just kill this guy because this has death touch, or does it die first? It dies first. Great. Double strike until the end of the turn. 3 damage to target. Then scry that. And then cycle that. I need to start playing these dwarven mines. Gamatsu has an article, Super Mario World Maker 2 version 3.0 update is now available. It allows you to make an overworld like Super Mario Land or Super Mario Bros. 3, and it updates a bunch of stuff that if you're big into it. The real question is there any reason to buy Super Mario Maker 1 anymore if you were just you just got a new Switch? Or do you just jump immediately into Super Mario Maker 2 and ignore the sequel? Or the prequel. Predecessor, I guess is the right phrase there. I probably have learned enough about the red cards that there is a legitimate reason to go ahead and move some cards around and try and rebuild the deck. I might do that off screen, but yeah, getting rid of this, for instance, getting rid of that, getting rid of something like that might be helpful too. Gamatsu has an article, the fantasy strategy RPG game War of Assured Kickstarter campaign is launched. It's due out for the PC in 2021 and the Switch in 2022. Kickstarter is laying off people, as many people are getting laid off. So I've never suggested anybody actually support games or anything from Kickstarter. This doesn't look terrible as a trailer, but it could easily be a game that just boils down to being a very standard JRPG game. And I don't know why you would want to support the development or the sale of a standard JRPG game when there's so many other games already. Unless this story came from some kind of manga or light novel or anime, which it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like it's from it's featuring character designs by the Doki Doki Literature Club character designer, and that's about it. It says it's been in development for 3 years according to Yggdrasil Studio. Yeah, that seems Seems not like a good reason. It's not even like RPGs are hard or particularly expensive to make and get funding for. If I was going to kickstart a game, I would definitely like kickstart a game that was doing something that couldn't be done any other way. Let's go and scry that. I probably would want to get rid of that card too. It's just not really useful. It's a kind of wasteful 1 mana spell. Gamatsu has an article. Yakuza Kiwami is now available for Xbox One and Windows 10. Kiwami means extreme, apparently. Is that what it means? I thought Kiwami kind of meant like a remake or reboot. Right, well. I don't know if this card is actually even that useful. But being able to summon a 3/3 at any point is nice. So I can't really complain about that. Gamatsu has an article here. Magical Girl hack and slash action game Mahou Arms launches for PC early access in April 28th. Looks like it's a high action Japanese game. Let's see. Does Mahou Arms mean mechanical arms? Yeah, a high action beat 'em up. Sort of a Bayonetta game from the looks of it. Or Devil May Cry style game with Pantsu. I can't say I particularly love the art style of the character. I find her particularly appealing, but the gameplay style looks interesting, so I'll put it on the follow list. Of course, it has to come out of early access, and it has to be something, and not just a tech demo. Steam is comparing it to Bayonetta already, and oddly it's English only, which feels like there should be some Asian language support, whether it's Chinese or Japanese or Korean or something. Yeah. But yeah, we'll put it on the follow list and we'll see what happens there. Am I supposed to do no blocks? I'm not paying enough attention, clearly. Alright, play this to get that. Play this. Cycle. That's not what I meant to do. I want to see if a cycling ability of another non-land would draw a card instead, exile a card from the top of your library, and then exile a card shares a type. Yeah, I don't think Unpredictable Cyclone is a good card to use. Let's go ahead and put this on the field. This could do 2 and this could do 4 next turn. We could tap this to make him so he can't block. So 420 happened, 420 being National Stoner Holiday and apparently the birthday of Hitler, and I've never gotten a straight answer on whether those two events connect at all. This would be the one day on April 20th for TechRaptor to put out articles like this, where it's a celebration of video games where you can kill Hitler, which there's a decent number of games: Wolfenstein 3D, Bionic Commando, Persona 2 Innocent Sin, Hearts of Iron 4, Sniper Elite series, Operation Darkness, Gogol 13 Top Secret Episode, Command and Conquer Red Alert. Oh, do you kill Hitler in Red Alert? War Frontier Turning Point. Yeah. So just kind of a listicle there. Not really relevant news by a realistic perspective, and not really something that needs to be an article that would be potentially republished every year. Discard a card and draw a card, or do we want to just attack? I think if we just attack with everything, and then if we do this to this, and do 2, and then do this to this, and then do 2, and then we can activate this to discard a card and draw, and then we can cycle this card. This, with cycling, could let you burn through all your cards a lot faster. And he's bringing this card out of my graveyard to exile it. Gamether has an article here. Stranded Deep for the PS4 and Xbox One launches April 21st. Stranded Deep is one of those games, I think, where you're kind of on a raft and have to survive. But I don't think it's the original game, because I think the original game is just called Raft. But maybe Stranded Deep does something that's more of a video game and less of just a kind of boring survival strategy game. TechRaptor had an article on just understanding cult video games, which is this video games with cults in them, or games that have a cult following. See, it seems like games that have a cult following. And it doesn't seem like it's actually going to be talking about specific games as much as just the general idea around why things, video games, and other forms of art would have a cult following. And it kind of boils down, I think, without actually bothering to read this whole article, or much of it at all, probably just boils down to people are different, and thus there are subcultures, and not everybody is going to like the same things. Kind of basic ideas like that. Right. Let's hit that. And sure, we'll take that. And then hit this and cycle that. And see, when you put something on the field like this, then when you put something back in your deck, it reshuffles your deck. So it actually messed up the scry I just did. Let's see. First strike on thing I control. Interesting. I could tap and tell this guy not to block. And then I can just attack with everything else. That puts us one away from victory. So if he wins somehow, that'd be amazing. Gamma Sutra has the same article. Facebook has launched a dedicated Facebook gaming mobile app. I have no interest in that. If that somehow does become popular, I'd be very shocked. Tech Raptor has an article. Games done quick. Corona relief done quick. Raised $400,000 for direct relief, which it's interesting to look at this number compared to some of the other games done quick events, because it probably indicates how much of the other games done quick events have donators already lined up and ready to donate, because I feel like they get over $1 million at least on an average games done quick event. So it kind of feels like they are finding ways to line up donations from big time donors of about 600,000. I could be totally wrong about that. And 400,000 is certainly nothing to laugh at or anything, but it also might be that a lot of the money that comes in and gets given the games done quick, there might be some accounting shenanigans where things donated in the previous games done quick in the previous years might get redonated by Games Done Quick as an organization to the current events. That way the number always goes up and it creates more hype and they get more donations in general, in much in the same way that many charities end up just donating a percentage, often less than 50% of what they get, to other charities that then take that money and only donate about 50% of it to another charity. So by the time everybody's taken their cut in the amount that actually went to some actual benevolent goal is very little. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has a blog here, Anatomy of a Failed Kickstarter, which might be interesting if you were going to have think about doing a Kickstarter, but it's probably pretty boring otherwise. Seems like we're going to have a ton of games that I'll have to curate for Friday, but let's get through the news. Like there are some scenarios where I might think about having a Kickstarter, but I'd almost certainly assume that it would fail from the word go, and I'd kind of prefer to like have a finished product and then have people fund for just buying the hardware, the resources, the shipping, the handling, the packaging, and do more of a pre-ordered campaign, not a Kickstarter to get funding to build something that may never get finished. Particularly the projects I've been working on lately, because of just getting distracted because of having back pain, I've really made no progress at all, and I don't think I'm going to anytime soon, and I may end up just giving up on it. But yeah, my digital sign, digital calendar, e-paper sign that I was building may not even have a market if so many businesses go out of business and so many people are doing business outside of from their houses. Moving on, we have a Gematsu article. The shoot 'em up The Adventures of Tin and Till for PC is coming to the West in 2020. It's inspired by cave shooters like Don Pachi. Okay. I don't know if I'd really be interested in a shoot 'em up game. I like the anime art style better than most shoot 'em up games. But this kind of looks like a mobile game. It beautiful pixel art. To me, just looks like pixel art. And it does look like it's a bullet hell shoot 'em up with a really small resolution. Yeah, I don't think I'd be sold on this. And they kind of know I wouldn't be sold on this. That's why they're putting anime cat girls on the thumbnail to distract from what it really is. And take note that there's a bit of self-censorship going on. The trailer showed this character in a bikini, and in this screenshot she's wearing more of a toga outfit covering up her back. Let's see. We've got a couple more things I want to mention, and then we'll be done for today. Major Nelson tweeted out he's probably contractually obliged to tweet out every game that comes out on the Xbox or Xbox Windows 10 PC. This game called Tamumari Complete Edition. This animation looks pretty terrible. Here you've got the Joker, here you've got a cat girl with a sword, and here you've got a gothic Lolita with a cat girl. Umbrella, although she's a gothic Lolita with red hair, which doesn't make a ton of sense. This looked particularly bad. We're calling it a retro style platforming game. And when these are getting announced, it's $4.99 digitally, I assume only on Xbox Live. I imagine when these get announced, they don't get any screenshots or anything more about them. So, kind of a game out of nowhere, which every now and then it does seem like we get games out of nowhere on Xbox Live. Gamatsu has the same article. Super Mario Maker 2 final update launches April 22nd as a World Maker mode. That's what I was talking about. And, alright, that sounds cool. I'm still not sure I need to buy Super Mario Maker 1. Let's see. Gamma Switcher tweeted out a video from GDC, the origin story of Void Bastard's striking art style, which really isn't that striking. And I'm pretty sure all these GDC presentations are way too long. Yeah, the art style doesn't look terrible. Void Bastards is another one of those games, though, that was overhyped by the mainstream video game media, and there was really no enthusiasm at all for real players trying to play the game or wanting to play the game. So then that brings me to the Humble Bundle store, and I need to look and see if we've got any new Humble Bundles. I don't think so. There's the Humble Square Enix Bundle 2020. That's new. So, looking at these for $1, I don't think any of those games are worth owning. I think I already own the Turing Test for $7.20. I don't have Forgotten Anne, so it would be fairly cheap to buy Forgotten Anne that way. And then Fear Effect Sidonia and Black the Fall. But oddly, Fear Effect itself, I guess it's its own standalone game that's mixed reviewed. I thought it was DLC. Then if you pay $10 more, you get Children of the Zodiacs, Tokyo Dark, Boundless, and Battalion 1944. This might actually be a pretty decent bundle if you want Tokyo Dark and Forgotten Anne and you don't own the Turing Test. Like $10 is not too much there, and then you're just going to get a decent collection of games that you just kind of don't want to play. And let's see, are there any other bundles? The 2K Together one is old, I think. We'll look at it just to double check. The Darkness 2, an unfinished game. Yeah, we already saw that one. So then that brings me back to my Twitter feed. And let's see if there's anything new or important that came out while we were streaming. And it does seem like the stream has worked. I went back by going back and reinstalling the older version of OBS. It seems like that's fixed that, hopefully, but it seems like this bug only happens like once a week, which is not a great way for things to go. Apparently there's a new Crash Bandicoot mobile game with a reveal in soft launch. We'll look at that. Apparently it's Earth Day, so Minecraft Education Edition put out some stuff. TechRaptor has a review. We'll talk about that on Friday. Fallout 76 NPCs can now permanently take your weapons. TechRaptor has a Final Fantasy VII review. It'd be interesting to see if any of the review sites I follow gave it a bad review. But that pretty much is just TechRaptor, because Gamematsu and Gamasutra don't really review games. Final Fantasy VII Remake has sold 3.5 million copies in the first 3 days. Animal Crossing New Horizons upcoming events will introduce a number of events, which no doubt it should do that. Let's see, we have a blog Gamasutra prioritizing accessibility considerations. That might be worth skimming. The Sims 4 knitting pack brings rocking chairs and Sims Etsy. Digimon Survive has been delayed indefinitely, according to TechRaptor. I think it's coming out still, though. I wouldn't just assume that they were going to abandon that. Let's see. The Polish distributor CDP files for bankruptcy. I don't know that company. And Eastern Bloc or mid-European companies going bankrupt aren't really surprising. I suspect we'll have a lot of companies going bankrupt fairly quickly as all this COVID-19 continues to drag on. And that may really be the first time I even mentioned COVID-19 today, which probably would help my views if I had quit mentioning it, but doing all that garbage and dancing around it and pretending like you're somehow getting one over on YouTube is just tiresome and ridiculous. Death Stranding PC launch has been delayed to July. Okay. So, all of those bits of news, I think, can mostly be just left at headlines. Here's the Crash Bandicoot mobile game being revealed in soft launch. Crash doesn't quite look right there. The question, I guess, is that what kind of game is it really? It's been soft launched, I guess, as a beta to special people. And I feel like you probably are going to be playing as a regular Crash game, and then you're going to fight enemies, and then there's like a wait timer to craft weapons to fight bosses. So it might be somewhat like an infinite runner game. So it doesn't sound particularly amazingly good or like it's doing anything different. And with that, I clearly have a lot of off-screen game playing to do on Magic, and so we're going to wrap up here. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you could friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching.